At the start of 2026, one question is echoing across the global entertainment world. Is the chemistry between Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet stronger than ever? Before we go any further, stay with this story until the very end, because there's a crucial layer most headlines are still missing. Drop your thoughts in the comments and share this with fellow Hollywood watchers, because what unfolds here may completely reshape how you see this relationship. From the very first seconds of their public appearances this year, something feels different. A brief glance held just a second longer. Body language that moves in sync without effort. Subtle gestures that don't look rehearsed. In an industry where every smile can be calculated, these quiet details often tell the most honest story. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet no longer appear as two global stars simply sharing space. They look like two people genuinely grounded in each other's presence. Since late 2023 through most of 2024, their relationship lived in a fog of mystery. Rare joint appearances, minimal social media signals, and almost no direct statements. That silence fueled speculation, skepticism, and endless theories. But as 2026 begins, the narrative starts to shift. Not through bold announcements, but through a steady pattern of moments that feel intentional, confident, and quietly revealing. Industry insiders suggest this shift is no coincidence. Both Kylie and Timothee have entered defining chapters of their careers. Kylie's business empire continues to expand globally, strengthening her position as one of the most influential figures in modern pop culture. Timothee, meanwhile, has firmly established himself as a top-tier actor, balancing blockbuster success with critically acclaimed projects. Instead of pulling them apart, these demanding paths appear to have forged a shared rhythm, one that many celebrity couples struggle to achieve. What's striking is how they choose to be seen. When they attend major events, there's no exaggerated display, no attempt to dominate headlines as a couple. The absence of spectacle has become the spectacle itself. Fans and observers are left wondering, is this the calm confidence of a relationship that has found its footing, or simply the quiet before another dramatic shift? Midway through the year, a seemingly small moment reignites massive attention. A short clip from a private gathering surfaces, capturing an interaction that feels intimate yet composed. No dramatic gestures. No performative affection. Just ease. Just familiarity. The reaction is immediate. Searches for Kylie Jenner Timothée Chalamet chemistry 2026 surge, and social media debates reignite with renewed intensity. But beyond viral clips and trending keywords, a deeper narrative is unfolding. Cultural commentators point to the contrast between them as the foundation of their connection. Kylie, raised under the constant glare of fame, understands the mechanics of visibility better than almost anyone. Timothee, known for his introspective nature and selective approach to celebrity culture, often moves against that current. Instead of clashing, these differences seem to create balance. There's also a noticeable absence of forced branding. No coordinated campaigns. No overly curated couple image. That restraint builds tension in the story, an ongoing sense that something meaningful is developing just outside the frame. Every appearance matters. Every absence speaks just as loudly. The audience stays engaged because nothing feels oversold. As the first months of 2026 unfold, a quiet consensus begins to form within industry circles. This relationship, once dismissed as unlikely or temporary, is now being described as one of the more stable dynamics among A-list celebrities. Not because it's constantly on display, but because it hasn't been shaken by major controversy. The chemistry people talk about isn't explosive, it's consistent. And consistency, in Hollywood, is rare. This is the payoff moment. The realization that strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it shows up in restraint, in timing, in the confidence to let moments speak for themselves. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet may not be defining their relationship for the public, but the public is reading between the lines, and the message feels clearer than ever. Does this mean a more serious chapter is coming next? No confirmation exists. But one thing is undeniable: in an entertainment landscape driven by constant noise, their story stands out because of its depth and control. And that may be exactly why the fascination continues to grow. Now it's your turn. Do you think their chemistry will continue to strengthen throughout 2026, or will greater pressure test what they've built so far? Share your perspective, stay tuned for what comes next, and remember, this story is far from its final chapter. And that unfinished chapter is exactly what keeps the world watching so closely. As 2026 progresses, every new sighting of Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet seems to add another layer to an already complex narrative. Observers are no longer debating whether the chemistry exists. The conversation has shifted to how deep it runs and what it could mean in the long term. In an era where celebrity relationships often burn fast and fade even faster, this slow burn dynamic feels almost disruptive. What makes their connection increasingly compelling is the way it resists traditional Hollywood storytelling. There are no sudden declarations, no viral interviews spelling out their emotions, no carefully timed exclusives designed to dominate news cycles. Instead, the story advances through fragments: an exchanged smile at a high-profile event, a quiet arrival together that cameras barely catch, a subtle shift in how they occupy space side by side. These fragments invite interpretation, and the audience willingly fills in the gaps. Entertainment analysts point out that this form of narrative control is rare. Kylie Jenner, long perceived as a master of visibility and branding, appears to be embracing a more restrained public posture when it comes to her personal life. Timothee Chalamet, who has consistently guarded his private world, seems equally invested in maintaining that boundary. The result is a shared silence that paradoxically speaks louder than constant exposure. Behind the scenes, sources describe a relationship built on mutual respect rather than spectacle. Their schedules remain intense, often pulling them to different continents, yet insiders suggest that distance has not diluted their bond. On the contrary, it has reportedly sharpened it. When time together is limited, intention becomes everything. That intentionality is what many believe has strengthened their chemistry. As 2026 unfolds, public perception has also evolved. Early skepticism, fueled by assumptions about incompatibility, has gradually given way to curiosity and, in some circles, admiration. Fans who once questioned the authenticity of the pairing now analyze their interactions with a different lens: less suspicion, more attentiveness. The narrative is no longer about shock value, it's about sustainability. Another element driving fascination is how this relationship intersects with their individual growth. Kylie's influence has expanded beyond reality television into a broader cultural and entrepreneurial footprint. Timothee's career choices continue to reflect artistic ambition rather than predictable commercial paths. Together, they represent two distinct forms of modern celebrity, converging without one eclipsing the other. That balance is delicate, and watching them maintain it adds another layer of tension to the story. Midway through the year, subtle shifts in media language become noticeable. Headlines soften. Speculation grows more measured. Instead of questioning whether the relationship is real, coverage increasingly focuses on its trajectory. Words like steady, grounded, and intentional begin to appear more frequently. These aren't terms usually associated with high-profile romances, which only heightens the intrigue. Still, uncertainty remains, and it fuels engagement. Will increased attention test the limits of their privacy? Will career pressures eventually pull them in opposite directions? Or will this quiet chemistry continue to strengthen precisely because it refuses to conform to expectations? Each unanswered question keeps audiences emotionally invested. The tension peaks not through drama, but through anticipation. The absence of confirmation becomes its own form of storytelling. Every month that passes without scandal or separation feels significant. In Hollywood terms, stability itself becomes newsworthy. As the year edges forward, one conclusion grows harder to ignore: Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet are rewriting the script of what a modern celebrity relationship can look like. Their chemistry, increasingly evident yet carefully guarded, thrives not on constant validation but on consistency and control. That restraint, more than any headline or viral moment, may be the clearest sign of its strength. Whether this path leads to a deeper commitment or simply represents a meaningful chapter in both of their lives remains unknown. What is certain is that their story continues to captivate because it unfolds at its own pace, inviting the world to watch, but never quite letting it all the way in. And that lingering distance, that final unanswered question, is what ensures this story doesn't fade. It holds. it builds. And as 2026 continues, all eyes remain fixed on what comes next. Because the deeper the story goes, the more it refuses to settle into something predictable. As the months of 2026 continue to unfold, the conversation around Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet reaches a new phase. This is no longer a story driven purely by sightings or speculation. It has evolved into a broader discussion about longevity, emotional alignment, and how two figures show up for each other while standing at the peak of their respective industries. In many ways, the chemistry people are sensing now feels less like a spark and more like a steady current, quiet, powerful, and difficult to disrupt. Observers close to the entertainment industry note a subtle but important change in how both are perceived when they appear separately. Kylie, often framed through the lens of glamour and empire building, is increasingly described as focused, composed, and selective. Timothee, long characterized as elusive and introspective, appears more anchored, more settled in his public presence. While neither attributes this shift to the other directly, the timing has not gone unnoticed. This is where the narrative tension sharpens. In celebrity culture, growth often creates distance. When two individuals evolve at different speeds or in different directions, relationships tend to fracture under pressure. Yet in this case, growth appears to be running in parallel. Not identical, but aligned. That alignment is what fuels the perception that their chemistry is not only intact, but deepening. Another layer emerges in how they handle silence. There are extended stretches where neither is seen publicly together, where speculation cools just enough to make room for doubt. Then, without warning, a new moment surfaces, brief, understated, but enough to reignite global attention. This rhythm of absence and presence keeps the audience emotionally engaged, constantly recalibrating expectations. Media analysts point out that this pattern creates a form of narrative suspense rarely sustained in modern celebrity coverage. Most relationships are either overexposed or completely hidden. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet exist in the narrow space between, revealing just enough to confirm continuity, but never enough to exhaust curiosity. That balance is difficult to maintain, and its consistency throughout 2026 has become one of the strongest signals of stability. The chemistry itself is often described not in grand gestures, but in micro-moments. A hand placed instinctively at the small of a back. A shared laugh that cuts through a crowded room. A pause before speaking, as if checking in silently. These moments, fleeting and easily missed, are precisely what make them feel authentic. They resist dramatization, yet they linger in the viewer's mind. At this stage, the public is no longer asking if the relationship is real. The question has shifted to how far it might go. And that question carries weight, because it touches on something larger than celebrity romance. It reflects a growing appetite for stories that prioritize emotional intelligence over spectacle, connection over performance. Still, the pressure is undeniable. Fame magnifies everything. Every choice, every absence, every shift in demeanor is analyzed in real time. The longer this relationship continues without implosion, the higher the expectations climb. And with higher expectations comes the risk of disappointment. This is the unspoken tension at the heart of the story. Can something this controlled survive an environment built on exposure? As 2026 moves forward, industry insiders quietly acknowledge that whatever the outcome, this relationship has already left a mark. It has challenged assumptions about compatibility, rewritten narratives around privacy, and demonstrated that chemistry does not need constant confirmation to be felt. Sometimes, restraint is the loudest statement. The payoff is not a dramatic reveal or a defining announcement. It is the realization that strength can exist without spectacle, that intimacy can remain intact under scrutiny, and that two people can choose to move forward together without inviting the world into every step. That realization lands slowly, but when it does, it reframes the entire story, and so the fascination endures. Not because of what is shown, but because of what is deliberately held back. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet continue through 2026 with a chemistry that feels increasingly grounded, increasingly intentional, and increasingly resistant to easy interpretation. Whether this path leads to a permanent future or simply represents a rare moment of alignment in two extraordinary lives is still unknown. But the story remains unfinished, suspended in that space where curiosity thrives. And as long as it stays there, the world will keep watching, waiting for the next quiet moment that says more than words ever could. And that sense of suspension is precisely what gives this story its unusual power. As late 2026 approaches, the narrative surrounding Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet begins to feel less like celebrity gossip and more like a case study in modern fame. The question is no longer centered on appearances or rumors, but on endurance. In a culture that rewards constant revelation, their ability to sustain intrigue without oversharing has become the most compelling aspect of all. Industry watchers note that both figures appear increasingly deliberate about how and when they enter public spaces. Kylie's presence at select events feels measured rather than routine, while Timothee continues to balance high-profile premieres with long stretches of near invisibility. When their paths intersect publicly, the effect is amplified. The rarity of those moments gives them weight, turning seconds into headlines. What's striking is how the public response has matured alongside the relationship. Early reactions were driven by shock and disbelief. Now, the tone has shifted toward analysis and reflection. Commentators debate what this connection represents in a broader cultural sense. Is this the evolution of celebrity relationships in the digital age? Or is it an exception made possible only by two individuals uniquely positioned to control their narrative? The chemistry, often described as quietly magnetic, does not rely on theatrics. It shows up in synchronization, how they walk, pause, and orient themselves toward one another in shared spaces. There is a sense of attunement that feels developed over time, not manufactured for cameras. That continuity suggests emotional work happening away from public view, a factor many believe is key to the relationship's resilience. Another tension emerges as both careers continue to accelerate. With greater success comes greater scrutiny. Every decision carries amplified consequences. Yet instead of competing for attention, they appear to operate independently, allowing space for individual ambition. This separation, rather than weakening the bond, seems to protect it. It reduces friction, preserving a dynamic built on mutual support rather than constant proximity. Cultural analysts point out that this model challenges long-standing expectations. Celebrity couples are often expected to merge identities, to present a unified brand. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet resist that impulse. They remain distinct figures whose connection is evident but not consuming. This refusal to collapse into a single narrative adds complexity and sustains interest. The media's inability to pin down a definitive storyline creates ongoing suspense. There is no clear arc, no obvious turning point. Instead, the story unfolds through accumulation. Each calm month, each unremarkable transition, becomes meaningful in contrast to an industry conditioned to expect chaos. Stability, in this context, feels radical. As the year nears its end, speculation quietly intensifies. Not fueled by evidence, but by momentum. Audiences wonder whether the absence of drama signals something deeper taking shape behind the scenes. Or whether this restraint is simply a choice to experience something real without external interference. The lack of answers keeps engagement high. What becomes increasingly clear is that their chemistry has shifted from curiosity to credibility. It is no longer perceived as fragile or provisional. It has weathered time, distance, and expectation. That endurance reframes earlier doubts, turning them into footnotes rather than defining features. In the larger landscape of pop culture, this relationship occupies a rare space. It is visible but not accessible, present but not explained. That balance creates a lingering emotional pull. People are drawn not to what they know, but to what remains just out of reach, and so the story continues, unresolved by design. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet move forward into the later chapters of 2026 with a chemistry that feels increasingly self-contained and self-assured. Whether it leads to permanence or simply stands as a meaningful chapter, it has already altered expectations. The fascination does not fade because the narrative refuses closure. It holds its tension, inviting observation without surrendering intimacy. And in a world that demands constant disclosure, that restraint may be the most compelling statement of all. As long as that balance holds, the attention will remain quiet, focused, waiting. And that quiet waiting has become the defining mood of this entire narrative. As the final stretch of 2026 comes into view, the story surrounding Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet reaches a level of gravity that few celebrity relationships ever attain. What once sparked curiosity now commands sustained attention, not because of scandal or spectacle, but because of its refusal to collapse under pressure. In an industry designed to expose, exhaust, and eventually discard intimacy, their chemistry continues to feel intact, perhaps even stronger precisely because it has not been over-explained. By this point, audiences are no longer passive observers. They are emotionally invested participants, tracking patterns, timing, and tone. Every appearance is dissected not for shock value, but for continuity. And continuity is exactly what keeps showing up. Month after month, the absence of rupture becomes the most telling signal of all. Entertainment insiders quietly acknowledge that this relationship has defied the usual life cycle. There was no dramatic rise followed by public turbulence. Instead, there was a gradual normalization, a shift from novelty to presence. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet are no longer framed as an unexpected pairing, but as a steady constant within an otherwise volatile celebrity ecosystem. That transition is subtle, but profound. What fuels the perception of deepening chemistry is not frequency, but familiarity. When they are seen together, there is no sense of performance. Their interactions lack urgency, as if they are not trying to convince anyone of anything. This calmness stands in sharp contrast to the hypervisibility that defines most high-profile romances. It suggests confidence, and confidence is magnetic. Observers also note how neither appears diminished by the relationship. Kylie's public image continues to evolve, less reactive, more deliberate. Timothée remains selective, measured, and focused on craft. Rather than blending into a single identity, they seem to reinforce each other's independence. That mutual reinforcement creates a dynamic that feels sustainable rather than consuming. The tension at this stage is no longer about whether they will last, but about whether they will ever choose to redefine the boundaries they've set. Will there be a moment of openness? A clearer acknowledgement? Or will the relationship continue to exist in this carefully protected space, where meaning is inferred rather than declared? That question hangs heavy because the longer the silence persists, the more intentional it feels. Silence, in this case, does not read as avoidance. It reads as choice. And choice implies control, over narrative, over pace, over emotional exposure. That level of control is rare, and it commands respect. Cultural commentators suggest that this story resonates because it mirrors a broader shift in how intimacy is valued. In a world oversaturated with confession and immediacy, restraint has become aspirational. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet, whether intentionally or not, have become symbols of that restraint. Their chemistry feels grounded not in constant affirmation, but in continuity over time. As speculation continues, it becomes increasingly clear that the lack of definitive answers is not a flaw in the story, it is the engine that drives it forward. Every unresolved question extends the narrative. Every unconfirmed assumption deepens engagement. The audience is not being led, it is being invited to observe. The payoff, when it arrives, is quiet but powerful. It is the realization that something real can exist without public validation. That a relationship can grow stronger by staying partially unseen. That chemistry does not need to announce itself to be felt. By the end of 2026, one truth stands out above all others. Whatever Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet are building, they are building it on their own terms. And in doing so, they have reshaped expectations, not just about celebrity relationships, but about visibility, privacy, and emotional authenticity in the public eye. The story does not conclude with a reveal or a resolution. It concludes with continuity. With the understanding that not every narrative needs a climax to be compelling. Some stories hold power precisely because they continue, quietly, steadily, without surrendering their core, and so the attention remains. Focused, curious, unresolved. As the next chapter waits to be written, the chemistry that sparked the conversation in the first place continues to hold, stronger, calmer, and more convincing than ever. And even beyond that point, the narrative refuses to lose momentum. As 2026 continues to stretch forward, the relationship between Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet increasingly feels like a long-form story unfolding in real time. Not a headline-driven romance, but a slow, deliberate progression that resists compression into a single viral moment. This is precisely why public interest has not only survived, but intensified. The absence of spectacle has sharpened attention rather than dulled it. Within media circles, there is growing acknowledgement that this dynamic represents a shift. Traditional celebrity relationships often rely on visibility to validate their existence. Here, validation seems to come from consistency instead. Weeks pass. Months stack on top of one another. No sudden reversals, no explosive narratives. In an environment where instability is expected, steadiness becomes the anomaly worth studying. Observers also highlight how their chemistry manifests differently depending on context. In formal settings, it appears restrained and composed, expressed through proximity and awareness rather than overt affection. In more casual environments, it reads as ease, an unforced comfort that suggests emotional familiarity. These variations give the relationship texture, making it feel dimensional rather than staged. What adds further tension is the way both continue to grow independently. Kylie's influence across fashion, beauty, and digital culture continues to evolve, increasingly shaped by long-term strategy rather than short-term trends. Timothee's artistic trajectory moves with equal intention, favoring roles and projects that deepen his credibility rather than merely expanding his reach. Neither appears to slow down for the other, yet neither appears disconnected. That balance remains one of the most compelling elements of their chemistry. Public discourse has also grown more nuanced. The early binary framing, real versus fake, serious versus temporary, has largely dissolved. In its place is a more layered conversation about compatibility, timing, and emotional intelligence. Fans and critics alike are less interested in predicting outcomes and more interested in observing process. That shift reflects a deeper engagement with the story. There is also an unspoken acknowledgement that this relationship operates under constant pressure. Fame does not pause. Scrutiny does not soften. Yet the longer this dynamic holds, the more it suggests resilience. Resilience built not on defiance, but on boundaries. Boundaries around access, around narrative ownership, around what is shared and what is kept private. As the months accumulate, the chemistry between Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet is no longer framed as something fragile or experimental. It is increasingly described as established. Not loudly, not officially, but through repetition. Through the simple fact that it continues to exist without needing reinforcement, this endurance subtly reframes earlier skepticism. What once seemed unlikely now appears intentional. What once felt temporary now feels considered. The story has matured, and with it, the audience's perception. Attention has shifted from anticipation of collapse to curiosity about evolution, and that evolution remains open-ended. There is no clear destination being signaled. No milestones announced. No roadmap offered. The lack of direction keeps the narrative alive, suspended in a space where speculation remains possible but certainty stays out of reach. In the broader cultural landscape, this story stands as a counterpoint to excess. It suggests that not every relationship needs to be decoded, monetized, or constantly reaffirmed to matter. Sometimes, meaning is sustained through duration alone. As time moves forward, the chemistry that defines this relationship feels less like a headline and more like a foundation. Quiet, stable, and resistant to disruption. Whether it ultimately leads to a more defined future or simply remains a powerful chapter, its impact is already visible. The audience continues to watch, not because it is being provoked, but because it is being trusted to observe. And that trust, rare in celebrity storytelling, may be the most compelling element of all. The story remains unfinished. Not paused. Not fading. Simply continuing, carried by a chemistry that has proven strong enough to exist without constant explanation, and compelling enough to hold attention far beyond expectation.